What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rap Ranks 1. My name is Mark, and so this is my second edition of my ranking series where I'm going to be looking at and comparing all the different albums that I've reacted to on this channel, which include Joe Budden, Mood Music 1, or The Worst of Joe Budden, KOD by J. Cole, the Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem, and ATLiens by Outkast. So in this video, I'll be comparing all of these different albums and mixtapes that I've reacted to fully. And yeah, it's something that I love doing. And yeah, I really dig into the albums and try and take it seriously, but it's for fun. So it's just my opinion. It's really subjective, at the end of the day. But it's super awesome to do, man. So let's get into it. So before I get into the actual ranking of the albums, let me just talk a little bit about the last two albums that I reacted to. So the one that I did farther back, it's been a while actually since I reacted to it, but KOD by J. Cole. So before I start my ranking, I'm gonna get into what I thought about KOD. So KOD was, a very interesting album from Cole. Like, it was like a different atmosphere from For Your Eyes Only. It was a very well thought out and well put together album. As opposed to For Your Eyes Only, which was more like, it felt almost more like a mixtape. It definitely had a coherent structure and theme, but not like this, not like KOD. It had a lot of powerful songs too, like a lot of songs that came from J. Cole, like personally, like his life and his experiences. And you could tell he really cares about the subject matter on here. It's just like very fitting and for the hip hop landscape too. Like everything that's going on now, man, there's been a lot of issues with drugs and alcohol and everything and money, and people nowadays are chasing clout, chasing that stuff. So this album seems to have come out at a very the appropriate time, and rest in peace to Juice WRLD, Mac. I watched an interview with Everyday Struggle a while ago with MGK, who's also struggling with these things. Like it seems it's a very big thing. It seems to be in the music industry. J. Cole kind of tries to offer a solution, man, to help with these, because people are just looking for an escape. It's tough to be an artist. I can only imagine at that magnitude. So J. Cole offers his advice on a situation, and he's the Kill Albert persona, to show the pitfalls of all of this in a pretty interesting way, as well as the sound clips and everything from window pane and brackets, and his a lot of really introspective lines from him too, like the intro to Once an Addict. Overall, I thought this was a really awesome Cole project, a really fitting Cole project for the times. That's all I got to say for that. As far as Joe Budden, Mood Music 1, which is the last project I listened to, it's a mystery to me why Calm Down and Walk With Me are on there. I've listened to Calm Down before this. I've never listened to Walk With Me, but the mystery part for me with that is they're already on a previous album, so I don't know why they were shorter versions of those songs on this mixtape. I'm sure there was a reason, but I'm not completely sure why. But as far as the mixtape goes, though, it was a totally different approach from KOD, right? Joe Budden focused more on rapping and proving, his skill with slick lines, clear messages and objectives. Even though he had these slick lines, he still had the clear messages to go with them, and it wasn't just empty words he was spitting out there, empty metaphors. He really made it a point, I'm gonna have a point for all these songs, and I just want people to know that I can rap still, but I'm gonna have a point to this as well. So it was one of the points of his album. He wanted to show that he could rap with the best of them. He wanted to show he could rap with anybody. He wanted to show where he currently is in his life and career in his mixtape, because he's going through a lot of problems with his label. Obviously, if you listen to this album or you heard any Joe Budden, he's had problems with his label, and this album he's in the midst of it, going through it with Def Jam. So and his child's mother, and drugs as well. Joe Budden is struggling with drugs, particularly dust. He talks about on his project. So he's going through a rough time. Seems like a really transitional time for him, and he was realizing a lot of things on this project they didn't know before. And it's basically a lot of songs sound like a cry for help, and simultaneously like a shoulder to cry on for people that are going through similar things that he was. So, really interesting album, man. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was very vulnerable, man. And I feel like I got a good picture of who he was at this time, who Joe was. So yeah, that's actually longer than I thought it would be. But let's get into the well, actually, let me talk about my favorite songs from both those projects. So my favorite songs from KOD were Window Pane, Once an Addict, Kevin's Heart, ATM, and The Cutoff featuring Kill Edward, which is J. Cole. But, you know, favorite songs on the Joe Budden project, Through the Wire, Breathe, Rest in Peace, So Lonely, and This Is For. Calm Down, Walk With Me. I heard the full versions and they would be on there, but the partial versions, I'm not too sure if I put them on there just because they're kind of short. And like there are other songs, those are longer projects, and there's definitely other songs I'm sorry to leave out of that top 5. I'm just trying to narrow it down, and I don't want there to be any ties or anything. So, but Sing for the Moment, I'm really sorry I had to leave that one out. Freestyle, Find a Way, and Def Jam Diss, I thought were also really dope. But so those are like honorable mentions to my top 5 from the album, from the mixtape, basically. So let's get into the ranking. Let's get into like where I will rank these albums. So how I do it is I have all of these different categories, and I rank them 1 through 4 in these different categories, and the album with the lowest score at the end, like if you have if I think you did an artist did the best in this category in their album, then they'll get a score of 1. And if they did the worst in this category, they'd get a score of 4. So again, this is a really fun thing to do, guys. And I don't mean to disrespect any artist or anything like that, but let's get into it. All right. So the first category that I'm going to be comparing these albums in is creativity. So in this category, I'm just looking at how creative are the lyrics, and the usage of the artist's voice, not really, the concept or the message or anything like that. Only the lyrics. So coming in at number 4, I have Outkast, ATLiens. So I thought on ATLiens, Andre and Big Boy really did a good job portraying themselves as, Southern artists and being separate from the mainstream New York acts and, Western acts. What I mainly thought was creative about this album was the flow and the vibe of it. For me, I'm not trying to tear down or kind of bring down any of these albums. I'm just trying to, have fun and really talk about my experience listening to them. So for me, I thought, the Outkast, ATLiens, on the album ATLiens, I thought the bars, the lyrics weren't as creative as some of the other the other 3 albums that I have left. So my number 3 album is in this category is J. Cole, KOD. So with KOD, I thought that J. Cole did a lot of different things with his lyrics. First of all, he did the hooks on a lot of the tracks. Yes, there's some background vocals that he didn't really do, but the hooks were all him, which is impressive, right? And that's pretty creative. It was pretty creative how he did some of them. And he also had a Kill Edward persona, which he also utilized his vocals for, which is pretty dope. But on a lot of the songs, he really said things very verbatim. He didn't use metaphors, similes, say things in a more roundabout way. He might have went around creating the song in a roundabout way, in an obvious way, unveiling things as the song progressed or something like that, or said some meanings said some meanings in an unconventional way. But in terms of the lyrics, I thought it was a creative album. There were some bars that are very memorable, very incredible, actually, like the intro to Once an Addict, where he's like talking about God and pain and everything like that. Like there are definitely some standout bars in here, but I don't think it's as creative lyrically as the other 2 albums I have above it. At the number 2 spot, I have Joe Budden, Muzik 1. I thought Joe Budden on this album really had a lot of slick and hard-hitting punchlines and bars, everything like that. And songs like "Oh My God," songs like "Freestyle," "Breathe," um, "Fight Music," "The Pump." All of these tracks, he had a lot of hard hitting bars in them, and even on his more introspective songs, he still kept that energy almost, and wanted to be really creative with how he was approaching constructing his lyrics. Um, so in terms of the creativeness when coming up with punchlines and memorable bars, I think Joe Button barely edges out J. Cole, but it's literally almost tied for me. It's like I could go one way or the other way, and that's the thing with these rankings; they're so subjective. So maybe in a month I'll look back on this and feel like I need to change this. But for right now, I think I'm gonna go with that. So J. Cole at the number 3 spot and Joe Budden at the number 2 spot. And at the number 1 spot for these 4 albums is, of course, the Marshall Mathers LP. Just slick out of the box lines. Like if the box is here, Eminem is like over there with all the bars that he's choosing to use. So he did a great job with creativity in terms of the lyrics and creative ad libs, and he's even singing and doing different things. He's just really creative with thinking outside of the box for his lyrics, and thinking of really ways to really convey a really complex message when you think about Eminem's album. All right, so this leads me into the second category, the message category. So this is how well did the artist portray whatever message they were trying to get out there, or message is. It could be more than one. So at the number 4 spot for this, I have Outkast, ATLiens album. I thought ATLiens, the message was very stream of consciousness, and at sometimes, contradictory, where they go back and forth between that pimp persona and, a more thoughtful character, like who they might actually be. So it's like a tug of war in some cases. And the message is basically, to thrive to be the best person you can be, I think. Overall, he had other messages in Mainstream and Babylon, other messages mixed in there, but that's the main message. But I think it kind of got lost in the stream of consciousness of the album, where they're talking about a lot of random things, a lot of random thoughts, memories that they have throughout their life. So it's like a combination of a lot of things. So I think for the message category, this is the least clear. So I'm gonna go with Outkast ATLiens for number 4, for my number 4 spot. And again, this does not mean I think the message is bad or anything. It's just one has to come number 4. An album has to be picked number 4. At the number 3 spot, I have Moon Music 1. I thought that Joe Budden in each song really had a clear message, whether it's Def Jam Diss, Breathe, Oh My God. Like each song had a clear objective, and overall the album had a clear feeling and objective as well. I thought that his message was that he's in a horrible place right now, basically, in his life. And a lot of people are letting him down. He's going through a lot of issues himself that are self-caused as well. And he's just at the end of his rope. He needs help. He's suicidal, as he talks about on Heaven or Hell. And he just needs to shoulder the crying, but he's also shoulder the crying for others. My number 2 position in this category is J. Cole, KOD. The album was really thought out to an incredible extent, and he really covered a lot of ground and a lot of different addictions and vices that people have and traps that people fall into. But at times, even though he did cover this grand expanse of material, I kind of thought, he could have even went deeper in this. Like he could have went deeper. There's a lot of empty space, so to speak. Like a lot of things, like a lot of hooks or something that I wish he would have taken to add more bars into a verse or something like that. Like, I felt like he could have went even deeper on some of these tracks, and I felt like the message was less creatively done. Like I said, in the lyrics category, it was more to the point. It was less figure this out as we go along. Like, what is he actually trying to say? I think anybody listening to this album for the first time can know, basically what he's trying to say in every song. So yeah, like those are the different aspects of these albums. They're all very different. Like the J. Cole, like KOD album is much different. Like the message is much differently constructed than my number one album in this category, which is the Eminem Marshall Mathers LP. The message was clear and cleverly done at the same time. It was just clever how he really conveyed the complex message under the surface about him, not being the monster that people portray him to be, and having issues himself, that he's frustrated about and has to get out through music. And he brings out his environment and how his environment has early in his life, caused him to be the way he is and everything like that. There's a lot of emotion and a clear message to this. That's it's pretty cool that I wasn't really expecting under the surface. While the message might not be as complex, that's not what this category is about. It's about how well did you convey whatever message you wanted to convey. How, to me at least, for me listening to the album, how well did I receive that message? And I should say, and that's kind of the order that I received the message, most fully, I should say. So the next category is flow. So my number four position here is Muzik 1 by Joe Budden. I thought, a song that stood out for me for flow is This Is 4 on that album. Mixtape, sorry, not album, but This Is 4. He really sped up his flow and really, it was really cool to see Joe do that. I didn't know he could. But in the other songs, I don't think his flow really stood out to me as much as it did in some of the other projects. My number 3 spot goes to J. Cole, KOD. I thought his flow, he tried a lot of different things. He tried to be really creative with it, but I thought it kind of got a little bit too structured at points. I feel like I'm being so nitpicky, but this is fun, guys. I'm not trying to demean anything, or I'm just trying to figure out a way to really say things without really demeaning anything, because that's not my goal. But to me, it was like it was overly structured, and to me, when I say that, it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but I it's, these things are so close. Like, I have to figure out a way to really pick them apart. But anyway, yeah, it was these like, for example, on Photograph, the song Photograph, J. Cole, I think he used 7 syllables for every bar that wasn't the chorus. And it just becomes like, what's going to happen. There's no real surprise to it. It's kind of very almost monotonous and very, it leaves a lot of energy to be desired almost in the album. Because a lot of the songs were like that, where he would, another song, I believe ATM, he would have like a bar of 6 syllables and then another bar after that with 10 and 6 and 10 and 6 and 10. So it's very well structured, but at certain times that leaves an element of surprise out of it. And I kind of felt that with this album. It kind of didn't have that energy that some of these other albums did. That's no hate at all. These are all really good albums. So hey, and I enjoyed KOD, like I said. So, but I'm just nitpicking. My number 2 spot was ATLiens. For what I understand, they brought a new flow to the game with this album and maybe their previous album that I haven't listened to. But with this album, I haven't heard anybody really flow like them, even today. They've brought, totally different flow patterns and crazy like ways to ride a beat on this. So super interesting to listen to. I think that's one of their, the best qualities of the ATLiens album is their flow. And at the number 1 spot, I have Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP. So I thought the Marshall Mathers LP was pretty cool because the flow was so diversified. Like, on one track, he'd be flowing super slow. Another track, he'd speed it up for a bit and then go back to being pretty slow. It was pretty diversified how he's kind of flowing over the track. And I liked it, even though a lot of it was more deliberately paced, the flow. It was definitely, sounded really good on the beat. And, whenever he sped it up or did something different with his flow, I got super excited. So it added new novelty to the album. And I talked about these things, especially because I compared the Marshall Mathers LP with ATLiens on another previous video. So I talked a lot about it there as well. And the next category, I have delivery. So, which album was the delivery better in of the artists? And when I say delivery, I mean the artist's vocal delivery. So at the number 4 position, I have ATLiens by Outkast. You know, this has nothing to do with the accents or anything. I grew up in Florida, so I'm used to the southern accent and everything like that. It's nothing to do with that. I'm happy. I'm actually happy they decided to authentically be themselves and show the world like we don't care what the standard is. We're gonna be ourselves. The thing why I had this fourth is I thought they weren't always as I don't know how to say this, but the delivery wasn't always strong enough. And in my opinion, like from just my opinion, guys, I'm not hating. I promise. I love this album, but I felt like the delivery wasn't emphasized enough. It was more their flow. Like they didn't slow down enough to really emphasize the delivery enough for me. When I'm comparing this album to the other albums that I have. So at my number 3 position, I have J. Cole, KOD. I thought the singing was really interesting. J. Cole singing, he varied the album up a lot by doing that. But the singing, it's similar to the rapping flow, where it was kind of a little bit, it sounded the same on a lot of tracks, after a while. But he has a strong, J. Cole has a strong, gravelly delivery, and that came through on his album as well. He used different voices, and he had a female on there, a female background vocalist that was pretty good. But he also used different voices himself. He used Kill Edward to really bring a little bit of diversification on his delivery. So that was pretty interesting. And at my number 2 spot, I have Joe Budden on Muzik 1. So Joe just has a really commanding voice on this project, and it really emphasizes it with a strong background, like vocal of him. Like, for example, if he says like, if there's a word he wants to emphasize, like he wants to emphasize, like he's saying a bar, and he's like, I almost flew, and then he like there's another aggressive Joe in the background. It's like flew, So he really emphasizes his words strongly, and I really felt him. I really felt the delivery on this. Like, I felt that he was really going through this from just his delivery, and I think I felt it a little bit more than J. Cole's album, and even more than the Outkast ATLiens album as well. And at the number 1 spot in delivery, I have the Marshall Mathers LP. Eminem, he had a really strong delivery as well, just like Joe. And he threw on some ad libs and different voices and singing as well. Very commanding, voice. And whenever he stepped on the mic, compared to a member of D12 or Snoop or Dre, like you're like, yo, this dude is like, his delivery is just smooth, just like they were. And that's another thing. The features on the Eminem album, their voices as well, their delivery was awesome. Dre's delivery and Snoop Dogg's delivery and Exhibit and all of these other members, their delivery is crazy as well. So that really adds to the delivery factor of this album and how the artists really combine to form this work. So the next category is concept. And I really define concept as how different was, or how interesting is just the idea of this album, the concept that you came up with. How creative is it? So at my number 4 position, I have Muzik 1. His concept was, he's trying to make he's trying to make this audience really feel what he is going through, really feel his mood. And I think that is a really cool concept. At number 3, I have Marshall Mathers LP, just because I think it's really interesting that he's kind of going at the media and going at his doubters and his haters on this project. At the number 2 spot, I have ATLiens. Their alien theme was, combined with incredible beat selection, and they're incredibly uncompromising, is what this album is about. So this whole concept is we're gonna make ourselves seem completely different than everybody else, it seemed like, and aliens, aliens in the sense that we're from Atlanta, and aliens in terms of outer space, that outer space feel that this album really has. So I think it was dope. At the number one spot, I have KOD by J. Cole. Because I think like this concept is, like I said in the precursor to this ranking segment, I think that this is so needed in society, an album like this. And the KOD itself has so many meanings: killer demons, king overdose, kids on drugs. It's such a layered concept that you have this king that is uh really rapidly really embracing all of these kids, and eventually leading to their deaths or them being seriously hurt. um and it also has a really cool cover art, and I think that really adds to the concept where J. Cole is this king, like I said, who's really taking these kids in the cover. And it's very bright and shiny, like the king is wearing a crown and he looks very like well dressed and everything. So it's crazy, that the cover is so many meanings you can get from it. ATLiens also had a great cover, and the Marshall Mathers LP as well. I really like their covers for various reasons. The next category I have is consistency. So at the number 4 spot, I have Mood Music 1. I thought it was really consistent all the way through. Some songs I thought could have been shortened, or in some cases expanded, like Calm Down or Walk With Me, which their full versions are on another album that was released previously. So I thought that was kind of strange, why release a shorter version? But it was very consistent all the way through. But not as much as some of the other projects. And this is really hard to really, because all of these albums are super consistent, these 4. So it's really hard to nitpick against either one of them. But KOD is my next one. Is one of the shorter ones. The shorter projects was only 12 tracks, including the intro. It was consistently good. No song I thought could have been taken out, but a lot of the songs I thought were pretty similar. For example, Brackets, The Cutoff, and Friends I thought were pretty similar. And KOD, I was gonna say ATLiens, KOD, Motivate, and ATM I thought were pretty similar. At the number 2 spot, I have ATLiens. I think I would say it's a little bit more consistent than KOD. And at the number 1 spot, the Marshall Mathers LP, I have Eminem up there. I thought every song was great. No real down moment in the album on this one. And a couple songs I didn't like as much, like Kim or Marshall Mathers, but I totally understand why they were in that album, and they really serve the purpose. At the next category I have is the beats, the instrumentals. At the number 4 spot, this might surprise you, it's KOD. KOD, the beats really match the songs and the message, because they really felt like circus sounding beats, or beats that would draw in children, like a superhero movie type of beat on some of them, like Motivate. And I get why he chose his instrumental palette completely, but the beats weren't as complex as ATLiens instrumentals were from Organized Noise and that crew. But somewhat like the Window Pane instrumental had a kind of a bop to them. ATM, KOD as well, Kevin's Heart by T-Minus, but not really, like not that big of a bop to them to put them over the top as the other than the other albums ahead of them. At the number 3 spot, I have Joe Budden, The Worst of Joe Budden. I just like the variety of beats on this one over the more closely sounding beats of KOD. So the horrible mixing really played the part why it isn't higher. But some of the songs like Calm Down and Walk With Me, like when you hear them, like, and Breathe, even I've heard the full well mixed version. When you hear that, it's like, man, these albums are really, like, these beats are really good. It's just the mixing. I feel bad because a lot of these beats, instrumentals, like fight music, like Through the Wire, all of these instrumentals are good, and it's just the mixing. So I think I prefer the instrumentals, even with the bad mixing, to the J. Cole KOD project. So I'm gonna go with that. At the number 2 spot, I have Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP. So this was actually at my number 1 spot. Obviously, it's ATLiens, and in my previous video they were reversed. But after consideration, I'm going with ATLiens as my number one, just because the beats are more fleshed out and the atmosphere that the beats create is really special on ATLiens. And the beats are really energetic on there, and it's really different. It's really hard to rank ATLiens versus MMLP instrumentals because there's totally different style. Dr. Dre is more hard hitting, like more stripped. He makes more stripped that beats that are more hard hitting and catchy. Well, Organized Noise and Outkast made more fleshed out, soul touching instrumental. So it's really hard to rank them, but I'm going to go with Outkast ATLiens as my number one here. So the next category is captivation, which is basically how connected or captivated did I feel when listening to this project the many times that I did. So at the number 4 spot, I have ATLiens. The flow is really captivating. The instrumentals are really captivating on this. But however, the delivery is not as strong as the others, and that kind of holds me back from being fully wrapped in. And also, I felt like I don't know as much about them from this album as I do the other 3 artists and the other 3 albums. So that's why this is my number 4. At number 3, I have KOD. I was captivated with the concept. I was like, yo, this is crazy how he's, telling the story of people that deal with all these different issues, love, drugs, all these different things that people deal with, so I was captivated with that and the whole, that whole labyrinth of ideas that J. Cole had going on, and Kill Edward as well. So that's my number 3. At number 2, I have Joe Budden on Muzik 1. I thought his delivery is so strong that I was just captivated. Everything he was saying, I'm like in agreement with. He really bared his soul on this one, and I felt him. So that's my number 2. And my number 1, the Marshall Mathers LP. Just Eminem's rapping was insane on this. Incredible. And he always came with something new. Always another beat that's different. Remember Me is totally different than The Real Slim Shady and Stan. So Stan is different from The Way I Am or something. So under the influence. So it's just totally different things, and I was always remained captivated throughout the album and ready for something new. So the next category is production, and for me, production is how well was the many parts, the beat, the vocals, how well was it combined into a project. So at my number 4 position, I have Muzik 1 by Joe Budden, and the only reason it's this low is because of the mixing and mastering. That really tanked it. This mixtape, the producer or somebody should have noticed that the mixing wasn't on par when this was released. Man, this is a great project. I wish it was all, the mixing was all up to par, but it's unfortunate. I really like the ad libs, and I thought they provided a lot of energy, and I thought Joe really brings a lot of different flavor, tactics, a lot of different elements outside of his rapping, that add to a really interesting project. So it's just, I just couldn't put it higher just because of the mixing. Outkast ATLiens is my number 3 spot. It was very minimal in extra fluff besides the lyrics and beat, but the album, flows very well from top to bottom. They have a really good ending to it. So I think it was dope. Maybe I'll think about reversing these 2 spots and putting the Joe Budden Mood Music before the ATLiens project. I kept going back and forth throughout my time listening, and I just stuck with this because I felt like right now this is what I'm thinking. But hey, at the number 2 spot, I have KOD. That was super well put together, super well thought out, like I said before. And, the Kill Edward section is the different skits with, not skits, but the different clips of, the child whose brother had got shot. That was intense and really emotional. You feel for that guy, and the comedian sketch with the money, in brackets. So really well put together. And my number 1 spot is Eminem, Marshall Mathers LP. The ad libs, I talked about this in my previous video, so you can check that out. But the ad libs and everything is just so creative, and production, skits and everything. It's just incredible. The next category is versatility. How versatile, how many different types of tracks and different feelings do you get from this one project? At my number 4 position, I have KOD. I thought many of the beats, like I talked about, and flows were very similar. There were different types of songs, but some of the songs sounded similar, like I said before. So my number 3 spot is ATLiens. I thought Outkast really had a lot of different tracks in here, and they took a lot of different approaches. Jazzy Bell, the totally different song than ATLiens, and Waylon is a more hardcore rap song, without a catchy hook. So there's a lot of different tracks in here for a lot of different audiences, even. At my number 2 spot, I have Joe Budden, The Worst of Joe Budden. He had more introspective tracks and more upbeat tracks, for different feelings, and more lyrically dense tracks as well. So, and at my number 1 album for versatility, I have the Marshall Mathers LP. In terms of impact, my number 4 album is Muzik 1, The Worst of Joe Budden. There's no real stats or sales on this because it is a mixtape. But from what I know, it would be lower than the other 3 if there was. Joe Budden is talking about mental health on this album when it's still very taboo to really do. And I thought he did a really good job explaining the mental health crisis that he was going through on here. So I think it really did have an impact in that way. At the number 3 spot, I have KOD. So this is a new album, so it's really hard to project what type of impact KOD might have, but these are huge issues in society today. So I think a lot of kids, people my age growing up would remember this album and really think back to it, hopefully when they're going through rough times themselves. So this could have a large impact in that way, maybe as well as the creative process. He really was really intricate in how he brought the different topics together and connected this whole album. So maybe it'll have some impact in that way. At the number 2 spot, I have ATLiens. This is close between 1 and 2 in this impact section, because I think the Outkast on this project might have been more influential to other artists, because musically, their style was so different. It may have provided a blueprint for other people to get outside the box and try different instrumentals and try different beats, But on the other hand, it might not have been more influential to other artists because Eminem has sold, the second most albums, copies of albums off the Marshall Mathers LP. Outkast on ATLiens was 2 times platinum. J. Cole was 1 times platinum. Eminem is like 10 times platinum on the Marshall Mathers LP. So, his influence with artists is tremendous. His influence in the culture and hip hop in the world is tremendous worldwide. A lot of people try and copy Eminem's style. A lot of people recognize his songs, especially off this album. His most recognizable songs are off this album. The word "stan" is in the dictionary now. So I think, to me, the Marshall Mathers LP still holds the crown for impact out of these 4. In the category of creation, my final category, I have my number 4 album being Muzik 1, The Worst of Joe Budden. Just because, I don't have the credits for this mixtape because it's a mixtape and I couldn't find them anywhere. So I believe this to be Joe Budden's second project. So it's very early in his career, and knowing Joe even late in his career, I don't think he produces that much. So, he writes his own lyrics, and he was probably very hands-on in it. But I would still give it the number 4 spot in creation. Like, how much did this artist create as part of their album? At the number 3 spot, I have ATLiens. Outkast themselves produced 3 tracks. Organized Noise produced the other ones. So they still had a hand in that. And I believe they also wrote all their lyrics as well. At the number 2 spot, I have the Marshall Mathers LP. Eminem produced 6 out of the tracks on this album. 6 out of the 18 tracks, not including the skits, of course. And he mixed 4. So he even had a hand in mixing, which is pretty cool. But it wasn't enough to get past KOD. J. Cole sang his own choruses. He, besides some background vocals, of course, he produced every song except for Kevin's Heart and wrote every song as well. So J. Cole holds the crown in that category. And that's it. So all the points are in, all the categories have been completed. So at a number 4 spot overall so far, is Joe Budden, The Worst of Joe Budden, or Muzik 1 with a total of 38 points. And the higher the points, the lower in ranking it is. At the number 3 spot is Outkast ATLiens with a total of 34 points. At the number 2 spot is KOD by J. Cole with 32 points. And at the number 1 spot is Marshall Mathers LP with 16 points. So thank you guys so much for watching, man. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing this. Really enjoy listening to the new albums and, you know, talking about it, man. It's a blessing to be able to do this. So thank you guys so much for watching. And I also have a podcast that I'm just starting with my friend as well. So go over there and check out that channel. It should be linked in the channels portion of my YouTube page somewhere. We have a podcast coming out there every week, and it's just for new music. So if you'd like, check that out. If not, that's okay too. I'll see you back here again next time I post a video. Thank you guys so much. Peace.